The meetings are over. The scouting reports have been turned in. The 40 times have been clocked. After months and months preparing for the NFL draft, it all comes down to 6 words. 6 words that could lead us to another monumental change for the entire franchise. The Cowboys are on the clock. Doubt starts to creep into the room. Are we sure this is the right guy to take? What if there's a trade on the table?
Just next year's one, it'd have to be more than that.
So many ways to go, and yet so little time.
We got 5 seconds.
Let's peel back the curtain. Let's tap into the phone lines.
How about them Cowboys? This is Jerry Jones.
And tell you some of the greatest stories from inside the Cowboys war room.
That's our guy we go to war with.
Stephen Jones literally dives on the table, grabs the phone, hits the button, gets the trade desk in New York.
Turns out to be maybe the greatest offensive lineman the franchise has ever had. That's the best draft choice in the history of the franchise to me.
Hello, Emmitt. This is Coach Johnson with the Cowboys. Okay. Well, pretty good. How'd you like to put a star on your helmet?
He said, son, I didn't get to buy the Dallas Cowboys by making middle-of-the-road decisions. That's what you just did.
We're on the clock. Okay, we're debating Leonard Little or Flozell Adams.
There were just so many moving parts to that draft, and the way it played out because of the dynamic of really the Randy Moss factor in that draft.
Jerry and Stephen have demonstrated through the years that they understand risk-reward in a certain way. They didn't want to risk a first-round pick, so they took a guy who wound up being a Pro Bowl player. In the second round, you're now looking at what physically, but for the ear issue, is first-round talent.
Flozell had a hearing loss issue in one of his ears, but there was some concern by some people in the room that, well, he's a left tackle and the hearing loss is here, and can he line up on the other side if we need him to? Is that really going to be a problem? And they're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Jerry says, well, who was the primary scout? Jim Garrett. Let's get him in here. And Jim was a big Flozell Adams fan. He scouted him, followed him for years. If you knew Jim Garrett, he had Jason Garrett's enthusiasm times 50 at all times. Unlike Jason, he wore his emotions out on his sleeve, and you knew exactly where you stood with Jim. Door comes flying open, and Jim Garrett literally is running into the room, and all he says is, "There's nothing a matter with the guy. Just draft him."
I think what it came down to, that was one of those debates of, here's this big mountain of a left tackle that for some reason has slipped in the draft, but here's a pass rusher that we really like in Leonard Little, and we know the guy from good connections we have at Tennessee.
I think Adams is a steal, what I saw. I like Little, but I think Adams is a legit first-round pick, and I think if you get him, you got a hell of a hit. That's what I saw.
Jim, let's hear your shot.
Well, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, let's hear about
All I know is Leonard Little. It's unbelievable he's at this price, and he gives you an edge rusher on third down and a starting Sam linebacker that can be all pro.
It was one of those, you stick with your draft board. We had high grades on Flo, and it was like, whether the hearing was an issue or not, I mean, it was, you put on the tape, and he was a first-round player.
Flozell.
I think after about 4 or 5 years, you would say his career was going okay, and he was hitting free agency. Many of us really didn't think he would come back. Bill Parcells shows up, and I remember one of the very first press conferences, he said, our top priority is to sign Flozell Adams. And we kind of looked around in the media like, really? He's like, this is the guy you build around. And, we were like, okay, well, he knows. Well, he did know, because he makes the Pro Bowl 5 out of the next 6 years. Only because he got hurt is when he missed the Pro Bowl. He was an outstanding player on that left side. He was one of the best left tackles the Cowboys have ever had.
For everything Flozell Adams proved to be, style points and showboating was not his thing. 10 years before him, the Cowboys took a player that couldn't have been more opposite.
My draft was, it had a few particulars around it, because I was graduating as a junior. Back then, in order to enter the NFL early, you had to graduate. So I graduated, and if a team drafted me and I didn't want to play for that team, I could actually drop a class, go to summer school, pick up the class in summer school, graduate in summer school. The team that would have drafted me would have lost the draft choice, and then I could have applied after I graduated in summer for a supplemental draft. So the teams, you had to call me before you draft me. I got some power over here. Green Bay called me with the 7th. It's a 4-pick slot. I said, no way. No, I couldn't play in Green Bay. I'm coming from Florida. I get this dark because I like cold weather. Yeah, I'm a sun kind of guy. So I was like, that's too cold.
Dallas Cowboys select on the first round, Marshall Irvin, wide receiver, Miami.
Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl bound next year, Super Bowl bound. I gave up some money on the front end, but I made it up on the back end.
After the draft, they brought Michael Irvin in. So we're at the ranch and he's walking through the breezeway there, and there was a full-size cutout of Tom Landry. He went and hugged it.
My new dad. My new dad.
There's a lot in that, and I was thinking about my dad. Wore a fedora hat, just like Tom Landry and everything. He was a huge Cowboy fan. He had prophesied before his death that one day I will play for the Dallas Cowboys. And I thought about how much he loved Coach Landry. And now he was in heaven looking down, and it made me utter those words, you know, here's my new dad now. It's my new dad.
I'll do it. This is my new dad now. My new dad.
As Landry's last first-round pick, Irvin certainly exceeded those lofty expectations. But sometimes, even going #1 overall can be a tall order.
I knew they wouldn't take me with the #1 overall pick because during that time, that was either quarterbacks or running backs. But I got a phone call a few days before the draft saying, we want to fly you to Dallas. Who would you like to bring with you? First of all, when I got off the floor, I said, well, I'd like to bring my head coach and my brother-in-law, who's responsible for me playing football. So we fly to Dallas, and we stand at the hotel next to the Cowboys headquarters. College coach called me in and said, Ed, now we don't want to disappoint you, but Dallas is not going to draft you #1 overall. They probably have quarterbacks at other hotels, running backs at other hotels. They said, so we're going to go to the biggest steakhouse in Dallas, eat the biggest steak and drink the best wine and have a good time. And we did. The draft was starting, I believe, at 9 o'clock. About 6:30 in the morning, a knock on my door. And there was a guy from the Cowboys headquarters that said, we need you to be out front of the hotel in front of the marquee with your name on it, welcoming you to Dallas to meet Tom Landry for a photo. I said, you telling me my name is on the marquee out in front of the hotel now? He said, yes. And when he went to walk away, he said, and don't be late. So I waited about 10 minutes and got up and got dressed and went out and looked, and here's this big billboard that said, welcome to the Dallas Cowboys, Ed Too Tall Jones. I finally got to meet Gil Brandt. Gil Brandt and Tex Schramm came over to me and said, call your mom. So I called my mom and told her that Dallas just drafted me, and she said, son, you know, you worked very hard and you got to go to your favorite team. I was a big Cowboy fan growing up. That was it.
I tell you, it's a wonderful feeling. When I first heard the rumors at the beginning of the year, I tried not to pay any attention to it, but I find myself thinking, what would it be like to be the #1 pick? And here I am, and it's unbelievable.
The NFL draft has obviously evolved over the years. There are less mysteries now, mainly because of the amount of prep work, which includes pre-draft meetings and visits. You might be surprised at some of the NFL stars that were nearly Cowboys. One of the biggest near misses turned out to be a major blessing in disguise.
To say there were a lot of moving parts in the Johnny Manziel draft story for the Cowboys that didn't take a player is an understatement.
Play fake bootleg to the left. Manziel tucks, runs, goal line, touchdown Manziel.
Johnny Manziel was magic on the field. When you think about what he did for that Texas A&M program, it's a solid program, has been for a lot of years. But he put it on the map. He was so dynamic in terms of making things happen, improvising. He had the arm, he had the mobility. He had everything at the college level.
Jerry had visions of sugar plums when he was thinking of Johnny Football, and he could certainly vision what that could mean to the brand. He was certainly a baller and a Heisman Trophy winner.
We had more Johnny Manziel discussions than probably any player that I can remember spending our time in the draft room overall. You know, ironically, we were really focused on getting the defense some help that year. We had 3 players in particular that we felt like the way the draft was going to fall, we're going to get one of them. Aaron Donald was one of them who played at Pitt and went to the Rams. Anthony Barr was another one who played at UCLA and the Vikings took. In our minds, that left us with Ryan Shazier, the Ohio State linebacker.
Our 3 defensive players went almost in order, 1, 2, 3. They went off the board right before our pick.
After Shazier went, the Johnny Manziel name popped up again, which we thought we had put to bed. And Jerry was very enamored with what we could do if we added Johnny Manziel to the team.
Everybody's head went straight down. They didn't want to look up as Jerry started eyeing the room to see what everybody's feeling was toward Manziel. I think everybody, as we went around the table, was speaking up that probably Zack Martin was the better player for our team. And of course, you could tell it wasn't what Jerry wanted to hear. And I said, look, Dad, I just think, we need to take Zack Martin here.
Everybody felt so strongly about Zack. I give Stephen credit for being extremely strong because Jerry was extremely strong.
With about 2 minutes, we'd kind of made the decision that we were going to take Zack Martin, but Jerry wanted to wait and see if the phone rings. Maybe we could do a little business still. And we got down to 40 seconds, 30 seconds, 20 seconds. So I got to turn this in. So we're taking Zack Martin, right? And the answer was yes. And I told Robert on the phone, I said, Robert, go ahead and turn in Zack Martin. And as soon as those words were out of my mouth, Mr. Jones goes, I didn't say turn the card in. And my heart skipped a beat, and I looked at Todd. I go, Todd, you heard him say turn the card in. He goes, don't worry about it. The clock's going to run out. We'll be okay. And obviously, a tense moment for me there as the owner's telling you, I didn't say do that.
There was some silence in the room still. No one knew whether to be excited or not with Jerry's demeanor. Well, he looked over at me while he was still a little hot and kind of slapped me on the leg, and he said, son, I didn't get to where I've gotten. I didn't get to buy the Dallas Cowboys by making middle-of-the-road decisions. That's what you just did, and that's what we just did. Hope you're happy. And I said, whew, that's tough. Jerry style, he walks in 2 minutes later, I'm so fired up about Zack Martin, and he came over and hugged my neck. And obviously, we don't pick Zack Martin if Jerry didn't want to pick Zack Martin. He's got the final say in these things, and I think, unlike what a lot of people think, that he just goes off and makes these decisions, he really respected the room, respected the consensus.
Johnny Manziel at Cowboys would have been unbelievable in terms of just the buzz around that draft pick. But they made the right decision. By far, they made the right decision. They made the smart decision. He's on pace to be a Hall of Fame player, Ring of Honor player based on what he's done so far in his career. Just a true cornerstone for this franchise.
When the Cowboys are on the clock, they like to use every second. In 2008, they went down to the wire, heavily debating between running backs Rashard Mendenhall and Felix Jones.
One guy's an every down back. The other guy's a special complimentary back. And we got to remember that we have an every down back in Marion Barber here. The argument that you make is if Marion's hurt, you put this guy in, you don't even think about it. He's playing every down. But Felix complements our guy really well right now.
I think when they got to that pick in 2008 with the running backs, I think they learned a lesson the year before in the 2007 playoff game against the Giants. They ran the ball with Marion Barber. In the first half, he ran for 100 yards, but they didn't score any points. They didn't have any speed. Marion Barber can plug along, and basically the Giants said, go ahead, have all the little runs you want, but you're not threatening us at the end zone. And so they end up losing that game, and the next year, I think they were looking like, okay, we got Marion Barber, but we need a speed dimension. We need a change of pace guy.
Mendenhall runs like a Sean Alexander kind of guy. He's an every down running back that's a good runner. Makes people miss. Got big hands, he catches the ball well.
They're both talented runners. Mendenhall has the ability to make people miss, catches the ball well out of the backfield. Seems to be a little bit more of an every down back, where in my mind, Felix is a little bit different. Felix is very special.
Here, what adds a little dynamic to this thing too is Felix Jones would come in as your kickoff returner next year. That would upgrade us in that department on special teams.
Cowboys felt like they had their feature back. They wanted to, supplement that 1-2 punch, to tag team with Marion Barber, and that they thought Felix Jones checked those boxes in terms of not only someone who could help on special teams in the return game, but maybe a home run threat to pair with Marion Barber.
Let's go, Jones. Let's go, Felix.
With the 22nd pick in the 2008 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Felix Jones.
Yes. Good pick. There we go.
Many people might think that Felix Jones got the nod because he went to Arkansas, and of course Jerry, Stephen played there, but that was the 20th draft, I believe, for the Jones family, and Felix Jones was the first player, and still is the only player drafted from Arkansas by the Cowboys. That pick was really because of what they thought he could do and come in and make a splash.
Felix Jones, the return. Felix Jones past David Akers. Felix Jones being chased down by Dents. Touchdown.
If you look at the first 3 or 4 games, his career there, he did exactly that. He scored a touchdown on his first carry. He had a huge kickoff return, which is really one of the reasons why they drafted him. He had a big, long touchdown against Green Bay. He was making those splash plays that they really needed, and so that was exactly why they drafted Felix Jones.
Hearing your name called on draft day is the ultimate dream, but sometimes not getting picked has its advantages too.
It was actually a tough day because you are hoping to get drafted, and when you don't, it's almost disappointing because you got all your family and friends over, and it's for you, and then nothing happens. It's kind of just like the wedding that didn't happen.
When the draft ended, there was 10, 15 teams. Obviously a lot of teams had draftable grades on him.
We had Romo's tag as a 153 on that board, which would put him at the top of the 5th round.
20 teams called, but I think I'd already had it narrowed once it got to about the 6th round, and it was Arizona, Denver, and Dallas. And I really liked Denver because of Coach Shanahan.
We had to recruit him pretty hard, and Sean and I were the 2 primary recruiters. Here we are trying to talk this guy, this free agent from Eastern Illinois, to come and sign with us instead of Denver. That's who the competition was. Now, that follows suit because Mike Shanahan, the Denver coach, was an Eastern Illinois guy, and he knew about him too.
If he's talking to Shanahan in Denver, all right, forget that I went to Eastern. He'd like to talk to Parcells in Dallas. I can recall, stepping in, Bill, it wowould be very normal to you got to use the head coach. You need to put him on the phone with the head coach.
Finally, Sean said, Bill, you got to get on the phone with this guy or we're going to lose him. So I get on the phone with him and I explained to him that this job here in Dallas was not settled, and that the job in Denver was settled.
And the number at that time, Denver was at $25,000 for a bonus, which is high in 03. We were at 15, and I felt 15 was going to be all we needed to get because I really felt like he saw this is the better place. And Mr. Jones had said, hey, we can go up if we need to, and it wasn't anything other than a gut, and I just thought, I think he's coming, right? I think he's coming. I don't think we need to do that.
It also came down to who can I beat out, what team can I make? And, having Bill Parcells call, Jerry Jones, that made a big deal.
And sure enough, 5 minutes later, he called and said, hey, I'm going to be a Cowboy.
Even his agent, Tom Condon, laughed at me. He says, I don't know how you talked this guy into taking it. He says, but you did it somehow. And so we got him there, and then, of course, he's gone on and done well.
While Romo was able to choose his destination, another player wasn't so fortunate, or so he thought.
Had I been a free agent, I wouldn't have came to Dallas because they were the worst team in football. And so I didn't win in college, so there's no way I would have said, let me go to the worst team in football. So I would have went somewhere else.
Back then, 12 rounds in 91. And the Cowboys had done so much wheeling and dealing, it seemed like trading all throughout the draft, and it was getting pretty exhausting.
But Dave Campbell tells me the story that they had 11 picks and everybody leaves the room.
And Jimmy said, I'm through. He goes, we got one more pick in the 12th. And he goes, why don't we do Jerry a favor and pick somebody local so they can just drive in. We don't need to fly him in.
So Campbell said, that kid at TCU I've been telling you about, and that's how I got here. Number 320. You know, it was almost an afterthought. I'm glad Dave Campbell liked me and took a chance on me.
You can tell when a guy isn't used to this because what did you tell me about this trophy?
I said, this thing is getting heavy. It's my third one, but it's still heavy here.
The Cowboys might not have wanted to pay for a flight for this Larry, but a few years later, they were flying high to land another one.
Larry Allen is the best draft choice in Cowboy history.
You know, they kind of had done their homework and kind of found this guy. Hudson Houck somehow had unearthed this guy. You know, HUD had some connections in the state of California when he had been at Southern Cal.
Larry was from a small school, Sonoma State, obviously, so he did not get a lot of play. What we do as offensive linemen in those days, we look at the top probably 10, 15 guys that we liked, and he happened to be on the list.
You talked about how you want a small school guy to dominate his level of competition. Larry not only dominated but destroyed the players that he was playing against at that level. But Larry's issue for a lot of teams was a perceived shoulder injury. And, you know, I think that's what caused him to slide in the draft down to the second round. And our scout that covered that area at the time, Tom Siskowski, he was a big fan of Larry. And Kevin O'Neill, our trainer, he wasn't worried about the shoulder. And I think a lot of other teams had taken him off the board.
Now going into the second round and saying, you know, we like this guy. And I think Jerry was going, well, how much do you like him? And they were going, well, we like him. And right then I said, you know, Jerry, we got this guy, this lineman, that we really like.
We went into an office about 4 picks before it was our time to select in the second round and just get one more look at him.
They kept running back and forth as it pushed further down the round. They would say to each other, let's go look at Larry again. And they would go and look, and they would say, what are we missing? And then they'd go back in, and more guys, and they'd say, we got to go look again.
He blocked one guy, knocked him down, ran and blocked another guy and knocked him down, and he's still running, and he's escorting the ball carrier down the field, and Jerry goes, that's our guy, let's go draft him.
I went back and I checked with our current trainer, Jim Maurer, who was here at the time too, and the issue that Larry had that everybody was worried about when he went to the combine, we never did surgery on that. He had a couple other surgeries, but he never had a surgery on what the perceived issue was that caused him to fall in the draft.
That's a pretty good value pick late in the second round, and so I still maintain that Larry Allen is the best draft choice the Cowboys ever made.
Because the Cowboys were building their O-line with later round picks, the team went 30 years between drafting one in the first round. Tyron Smith not only bucked that trend in 2011, but his selection was the basis for another pick just 2 rounds later.
We were moving into the third round, and we were looking for a running back at that point in time. And, you know, there were several of us that were really big Demarco Murray fans. And Stephen Ridley, the LSU running back, was the other guy that was kind of creeping back into the discussion. As we put our board together, we had Demarco rated ahead of Ridley. They both had high second-round grades. We called Barry Switzer, we got him on the phone, and he sold Demarco really well to our group.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Jerry.
We're sitting here looking at Demarco Murray, and he's about 2 spots away, and we've got him as our top player on the board right now. We're in the third round. Tell me about him.
Great kid. You'll love him. Class act. It'll never be a problem for you. When he came here as a freshman, I thought he was going to be one of the top, maybe a first-round pick.
It wasn't completely sold on DeMarco yet, and you know, as we were getting down to making the decision, we were probably 2 minutes left on the clock or something, and Coach Garrett's asking me, you know, you really like DeMarco, and I said, yeah, Coach, and he said, well, how's he going to do when it's 4th down and we're up in the Meadowlands, and we got to score a touchdown? It's to win the game, and we're on the 2-yard line, and we got to get it into the end zone. I looked at him, I said, Coach, put him in. Put him behind that guy we just took in the first round. He's going to score every time. And, you know, I probably was a little aggressive in how I described that.
Marco. How you doing, sir?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm so pumped up right now.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be a Cowboy. I'm going to do everything in my power to get us to that championship.
Demarco Murray with a block from Bryant to the 20, 10, touchdown, 91 yards. DeMarco Murray has set a Dallas Cowboys record for most rushing yards in a game by a running back.
And I remember Coach Garrett stopped me in the hallway the week after that game, and he goes, I was thinking about you when DeMarco was putting all those yards up. Long story short, DeMarco obviously had a great career with us, and it turned out to be a heck of a draft pick for us.
Murray set his share of records with the Cowboys, although he eventually signed with the Eagles in free agency. But his departure opened doors for the Cowboys in 2016 in more ways than one.
Up the middle, Elliott inside the 30, Elliott 20, he accelerates the 15, Elliott at the 10, he's gonna go! Touchdown, Ohio State! Ezekiel Elliott writes his name into college football history.
2016, by that point, running backs weren't drafted as high as in past years. You know, the game is shifting a little bit. It's become a little more pass happy.
One of my favorite things about him was his speed from the line of scrimmage to the second level and the power that he ran at. And the style that we were playing. You know, Coach Garrett was here, we were running the football, and that was part of our identity. So if that's part of your identity, you need something to put the stamp on it, and that's what, you know, Zeke brought to us when we saw that in the draft.
That was the first year, I mean, I've been here where we've had a top 5 pick. It was really kind of down, honestly, between Jalen Ramsey and Zeke.
Jalen Ramsey at 4 would have come in and helped the Cowboys defense, no question. I think the Cowboys ultimately felt like Ezekiel Elliott could come in at number 4 and certainly help the running game on offense, but help the defense as well.
I called this dude the day of the draft, and the phone rang, he picked it up. I said, hey Zeke, listen, just stay tight, hang tight. If you're there, we're gonna pick you. I hung close.
No, he ain't say that.
What I say?
No, GB called me, he called me at 2, so 2 come around, I'm like, shit, I don't know this number, I'm like, what? I wasn't planning to go, I thought they were gonna pick a quarterback. So it's GB like, hey, anybody called you yet? I'm like, no. He's like, well, just hold tight.
While Zeke was waiting for his phone to ring, the Cowboys got a call of their own with a trade offer that would have changed everything.
If he doesn't call, I'm never going to talk to him. Ozzy.
Oops. Oh. Here it is. Pick it up.
Hello. Hey, guys. Well, we're probably will pick unless you got something good for me. Okay, 104. Check, yeah. That's the 4. We need a 3 to do it. Yep. Okay, but if you change your mind, call me. Because we can take the 3.
He's doing it to take Ramsey.
He's doing it to take Ramsey.
There's no question. I mean, we probably get the same player with the 6, no matter what, but it's not worth the risk. I think we'd just die. I wouldn't take this risk to get the player at the 4th. I would to move our 2 up and get Lynch.
So I knew it was either me or Jalen Ramsey, so man, the clock ticking, I don't know what they was trying to do, you know what I mean? But man, it get down to a minute, I'm looking over there, he looking over here, we wonder who gonna get the call.
I think we're talking about a cornerstone guy.
Get him on the phone.
1 minute.
Don't you
call him.
Get him on the phone.
Hey, Dallas Cowboys, it's Jerry Jones.
How you doing, Jerry?
I'm just doing great, and I'm so proud for you. We want to pass you over here. Let's go win the Super Bowl. You're absolutely right.
How you doing? Where the hell did you get that suit? Where'd you get that suit? I've never seen a cut-off shirt before like that.
Zeke was like this influx of fun and energy, and he's throwing candy at Dak during his interviews, and he was just like a breath of fresh air in what had been, I don't want to say a stale locker room, but a very veteran locker room. And he's just this, Zeke almost didn't know what he didn't know. He's just like, yeah, I've been kicking ass and taking names since I was 15, and I'm going to do it here in the NFL too, and he did.
Here's Elliott into the secondary. Over Quinn trying to run him down and running out of time. It's a touchdown for Elliott. Zeke Elliott rips it.
It's an incredible story how we got to taking Dak in the 4th round.
I went to see him play Auburn, and they were 3rd in the nation. They won that game, and they were number 1. They were on Sports Illustrated. But like to see him carry that team to that level, it was unbelievable.
One of the things we talked about was, when has Mississippi State ever been, why are they there now? And there's a catalyst to it.
Dak Prescott a run all the way, and he's got a big opening. And a stiff arm, Dak Prescott. This is what he does better than anybody in the SEC. Touchdown.
We were looking at quarterbacks because, Tony was getting to that point. We wanted one to develop. I think our experience with Dak at the Senior Bowl kind of let us know who he was.
Jason Garrett and his staff, they were in charge of one of the teams. The irony is that Dak wasn't on their team. They coached Carson Wentz. Jerry Jones kind of made this big spectacle where he went and met Wentz at midfield of Lad Peoples Stadium, and everybody was, oh my God, is this the next franchise quarterback of the Cowboys? And meanwhile, Dak is over on the other team, and nobody's really paying attention to him. Why would they?
Of all the quarterbacks that year, obviously Jared Goff and Carson Wentz were kind of the cat's meow up at the top of the list. Obviously Zeke was our first-round pick that year, but it would have been a hell of a discussion had Goff or Wentz been there, because we were all in on both of those guys as well. As the draft went on that night, we kind of started making some phone calls and seeing what it might cost to get back up in and try and draft Paxton Lynch.
Are y'all going to pick here?
Like a lesser lineman and a corner than Shaq.
Okay, we'd be looking at our 2 and our 3.
Rather than have Shaq.
Our 2 and our 3, I'm sorry.
I'd rather have Shaq.
Yeah.
And lose you 3.
Okay, thank you.
Have two picks.
Buffalo's no. If our guys there, we'd be interested in going from 34 to 26. It'd be for our 4. We've chummed Pittsburgh, Seattle, Green Bay. We hadn't gone after Kansas City, Arizona, Carolina, or Denver.
Then we got trumped by the Broncos. They sweetened the pot a little bit, and they jumped up and they drafted Paxton Lynch.
Paxton just told us.
It was. Well, I'll sit down now.
Jerry Jones, famously, he was sick to his stomach. Like he said, he couldn't sleep on Thursday night because the Cowboys weren't willing to give up the extra pick that the Seattle Seahawks wanted to get into the first round for Paxton Lynch. For them to not be willing to pay the price to get that deal done, Jerry Jones is sick to his stomach. Everybody's saying, are they not going to get their quarterback? What the heck is going on here?
Well, the bigger one would be our boy from Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Okay, golf goes. Bah. You guys are at my face. Bah.
What does Dak do?
Dak is a little bit boom. There he is. Pooh.
Okay. Rather than Doc.
Now, if you looked at Troy Aikman coming out of school, he probably did the same thing. Look at it, verify. Okay. John Elway. There's a whole history of these guys have done this now.
Went on down that morning. Dak was still sitting there, and it became one of those. Scouts like to call it a value pick. My gosh, we can't pass this guy up at this point.
Dak Prescott, please. This is he. Dak, Will McClay with the Dallas Cowboys. I got somebody who wants to speak to you. Hello. Yes, sir.
Dak, this is Jerry Jones, and you're a Dallas Cowboy.
How you doing?
Listen, we're glad you're here, excited about it. Your coordinator and your head coach, all of them quarterbacks, they'll really be able to give you some great coaching.
Yes, sir, I'm excited.
I'm glad you are, because we're excited about it, too.
Our Dallas Cowboys select Dak Prescott, quarterback, Mississippi State.
You fast forward to training camp, and Tony can't go, and all of a sudden Kellen breaks his ankle, and the next thing you know, Dak's our guy, and Dak and Zeke, and the rest is history from that draft.
The fact that Dak is the only quarterback left with his original team out of that 2016 class, number one, it tells you how hard it is to draft that position, to evaluate that position. It just shows you how hard it is to succeed at that position. It shows his drive to be as great as he can be, and he's really worked at it. This isn't all luck. There were injuries that put him in that situation in 2016, but he has worked to get to the point he is now.
At the end of the day, yeah, it's probably pretty surprising that the bottom of the 4th round quarterback is the best one out of that draft, looking back at it. It's surprising, but it's not when you factor in who Dak is.
Dak certainly isn't the only franchise player to fall right into the Cowboys' lap.
Hutchinson, handoff, Smith at left guard, 35, 40-yard line, right on the mark. That should do it. for sweetness. Make a place for Emmitt. Make a place for Emmitt.
Yeah, they were absolutely looking for James Francis. They were looking for the linebacker from Baylor.
Jimmy wanted a linebacker to the point where they couldn't trade up far enough to get him. They tried to trade with Cincinnati to take James Francis away from him. They couldn't do it. And now they're sitting there at 21 and it's like, well, we'll just take a running back.
I'm stressing whether or not I would be picked in the top 10 like people projected me to go in the top 10. Little did I know that that would not happen. And I started to become very nervous.
Emmitt just kind of kept sliding. Jimmy knew him extremely well. He'd recruited him to Miami, didn't get him, but he'd followed his whole career. Jimmy knew exactly what Emmitt was. He just really wanted James Francis, and then he didn't get him. And then they all looked at each other and they said, well, maybe we better look at Emmitt again.
You know, there was a lot of defensive players taken, and about the 14, 15 picks, there was some talk about me going and playing in Green Bay, and that's not where I really wanted to go.
Okay, we just made a deal with Pittsburgh. Okay, we're swapping first rounds. We get their 17th, and we're giving them our 21st in the first round. Okay? That's the one from Minnesota. That's Minnesota.
Wait till they tell you.
Right? And also San Francisco's third, which is the 81st pick.
Hello, Emmitt. This is Coach Johnson with the Cowboys.
Okay,
well, pretty good. How'd you like to put a star on your helmet?
Yes, sure can.
Well, we're going to put your name in. You feeling good? You healthy?
Well, wait a minute. We're talking
here. Ready to go? Okay, we're going to make your pick right now.
He didn't know.
We're going to bring the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay. You got us running back. Not only that, a quality. I mean, like a first round.
He's big time guy. He's the highest guy rated on the board.
What is it?
Under the trade that I just described, Dallas selects Emmitt Smith, running back from Florida.
Just a marvelous back from Escambia, Florida, Emmitt Smith, a true junior.
Consensus first team All-American, averages 145 yards rushing a game. Led the team in...
Jerry Jones is with us, the owner of the Cowboys. The deal for Emmitt Smith, the Cowboys trying to trade up most of the day. You were back there in the war room. What was the importance of getting Emmitt Smith?
Emmitt speaks for himself. His performance on the field, consensus All-American as a junior. It's great that he's a Cowboy.
I was so excited. All I thought about was a 7-year-old kid wanting to play professional football and wanting to play for the Dallas Cowboys. And that was my moment.
Understanding your own war room is one thing, but finding out what's going on with the other 31 teams takes a unique skill, one that Jerry Jones put on display in 2002.
Jerry Jones is one of the best I've ever been with when it comes to working in a draft, because I've never been with anybody that's able to get another team to tell them who they're going to take. And this happened on the clock to us one time, and it was almost a disaster. It was the Roy Williams draft.
Going into that draft in 2002, you know, defense was a big thing we wanted to fix up, and we were pretty dialed in on Roy being the guy that we wanted, especially as we got to draft day. That night was probably the most masterful maneuvering that I've ever seen Jerry do in the draft room. When we got to the clock that night, the phones were like exploding with people wanting to move up, because there were about 3 different players and teams involved in trying to get that pick, and everybody thought they were trying to go after the same player in a lot of cases. The Chiefs wanted Ryan Sims, but they thought the Vikings wanted Ryan Sims as well. And we knew we had the Chiefs, you know, we had them in the crosshairs.
Jerry's got Kansas City on the phone. He's got Carl Peterson, Frank Gilliam from Minnesota. He's working these guys on the phone, and we're on the clock. I mean, he's working a trade on this clock, and it's getting close.
Carl, I think we're just locked in here now. Are you going to take Roy Williams? Okay. So you won't take Roy Williams, and so I'm just a question of getting past Minnesota here.
Usually they'll tell you, hey, we're taking an offensive guy, or we're taking a defensive guy, and then you make the determination, man, we can't afford to move. because they might be taking our guy. Jerry got those general managers to admit who they were taking.
We're sitting here getting some pretty serious stuff from Kansas City. It's right below you there. And I'm just out loud thinking here with you, is there anything we can do to all better ourselves? You're not going to lose your guy, more than likely, if we pick. Kansas City or Jacksonville, that's something else.
Finally, it's like Kansas City's going to give us the better deal. We take their third. Everybody's kind of like, yeah, okay, clock's still ticking down. We've got this trade. Chris Hall walks out of his office and goes,
guys, did somebody call Joel Bussert to turn the trade in? Because it was your responsibility still to let them know you made a deal when you owned the pick.
Stephen Jones literally dives on the table, grabs the phone, hits the button, gets the trade desk in New York, and is like, Dallas is making a trade with Kansas City. Here are the details. Clock is down. We're all watching it. It's 5, 4, 3.
Minnesota turned in the cards.
Now Minnesota, Kansas City are running their picks they're trying to get ahead of us now. So we're thinking, oh my gosh, we just lost this trade.
I was like, dude, what the hell is going on? Like, I was like, I'm not getting drafted. I was like, I didn't know what was going on.
Steven hangs up the phone. He goes, I think we're okay. Sure enough, though, the league office called us back after the pick was made, and Joel Bussert said, Steven, don't ever do that again.
Roy, this is Jerry Jones.
What's up? I see you on TV right now.
Roy, I just wanted to hear what it sounds like to talk to another Dallas Cowboy.
The Cowboys traded back and still got the player they wanted. And nearly 20 years later, they did it again.
Good. That 4-3, I told you. 4-3-9.
Where do you really want to go? Like, what's the ideal spot?
Obviously my dream location was Dallas. I always say I look good in blue. And, hopefully I'm drafted by someone in blue. We already, he's in his blue. It's in the Parsons DNA. Blue's just a dream team, man.
I have no problem believing Micah Parsons was their highest graded defender on the board. Maybe they still would have taken a corner over him if one had been available because of positional value.
I think it was clear that the Cowboys were going to take a cornerback. That's what they really wanted. And where they were standing in the draft, sitting at 10th overall, there was really no way that one of those two guys wasn't going to be there.
The Carolina Panthers select J.C. Horn. The Denver Broncos select Pat Surtain, Jr.
I think they had a very clear idea that they wanted to attack this defense in the draft. And I think in a perfect world, that would have been a cornerback, Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn, but they lost those guys right out from underneath them. They said, okay, we can still get a heck of a linebacker who can fill 4 or 5 roles for us right away and help ensure us at that position. And I think they felt just fine about it.
We get Micah or the offensive lineman? Northwest. Yeah.
Well, the reason we're trading back
would be to get a 4. We're going to ask for a 3.
Hey, Howie. We're still considering it, but we'd at least need the 3 to consider it. Your third. We're having one last conference here, but let me throw that in the mix there.
Cowboys had comfort doing that because they were confident that it was going to be Devontae Smith, and they said, well, we're in charge. He's either going to go to the Giants or the Eagles, so let's try to get something out of it because he's going to wind up in our division either way, and that's exactly what happened.
Okay, we'll do that. Pick 84. You're on the clock. I'll call. Pick 84, right? 84. Okay.
If it's Dallas, I'm crying. If it's Dallas, I'm crying.
I mean, this guy can
really
make a difference in your defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, both the offensive line are fine players, but Pete Parsons.
Nervous. But phones is ready. Hello?
Hey, Micah.
Yes, sir.
This is Jerry Jones, and I'm calling you to tell you we're turning your card in. You're a Cowboy.
No, this is all I ever wanted, man.
You don't think it's too big for you to be a Cowboy, do you?
No, not at all.
The Dallas Cowboys select Micah Parsons!
You ready? Congratulations, man. Thank you. Dallas Cowboys, how you like that, man? Oh, that's the best place in America.
Whether you're a first-round draft pick or an undrafted free agent, every NFL career begins with a life-changing phone call. A phone call from behind closed doors inside the War Room.
Is this Martellus? Oh, this is Jerry Jones, and you're a doctor.
After you spend a little time in the weight room and get you some strength, and I've been looking at your picture here, you could use a few reps.
Bobby, here's Jerry Jones. He wants to talk to you. Come on.
Hey, Bobby.
Mike.
He's forgotten about me.
Okay.
What a day, man.
Well, that was some good theater there, man.